The clink of champagne glasses should have been the soundtrack to my anniversary night. Instead, it was the gasp that rippled through the rooftop restaurant when she walked in. Seattle's skyline stretched out behind us, the Space Needle glowing like a lighthouse in the dark, but all I could see was my husband's face as it drained of color. He hadn't expected her to show up. I hadn't either. But there she was, Marissa, with that smug smile plastered on her lips, the one I'd only seen in Instagram stories that he swore were nothing. She didn't walk in quietly. She made an entrance, sliding her arm around his waist as if she'd owned it all along. "Surprise," she purred, loud enough for the entire table to hear. My coworkers froze mid-bite. His business partners exchanged looks, and my stomach lurched so hard I thought I might be sick right there on the white tablecloth. I pushed back my chair, trying to steady my voice. "What the hell is this?" My husband, Caleb, actually had the nerve to laugh. A nervous, cracking laugh that did nothing to cover the fact his hand was still resting on her hip. "Carmelia, don't make a scene. She's just a friend. Just a friend." The phrase I'd been fed for months, each time I questioned late-night texts, phone calls he took on the balcony, weekends where he suddenly had work travel, and now that friend was wearing the gold bracelet I'd seen missing from his drawer last month. The whispers started immediately. Phones tilted under the table, recording. I could feel the laser-sharp stares from every guest. A decade of marriage reduced to a spectacle. Marissa smirked, glancing at me like she'd already won. "He didn't tell you? We've been spending time together. Real time." She pressed the words like glass into my skin. The restaurant went silent. Even the servers froze. "Carmelia," Caleb hissed, eyes narrowing. "You're embarrassing yourself." Embarrassing myself. As if the betrayal wasn't enough, he wanted me to swallow it in silence, to play the good wife while he flaunted his affair like a trophy. Something in me snapped. I stood so fast my chair toppled backward with a crack. My pulse roared in my ears, but my voice came out sharp, cutting through the air like steel. "You've been lying to me for months. You've humiliated me tonight. And you expect me to sit here and smile?" He tried to hush me, waving his hands like I was some hysterical child. "Sit down, Carmelia. Let's talk at home." "No," I said. "We'll talk right here." And before he could blink, my palm connected with his cheek. The sound echoed across the rooftop, louder than the music, louder than the traffic below. Gasps burst around us. A woman at the next table actually clapped. Caleb stumbled back, face burning red. "You're crazy," he barked. Crazy. That word women hear when men get caught. But I didn't feel crazy. I felt alive. I felt done. I looked Marissa dead in the eye. "Congratulations. You wanted him? He's yours. But you'll soon find out. He comes with debt, lies, and the wreckage of everything he touches." Her smirk faltered. I grabbed my purse, straightened my shoulders, and let my eyes sweep over the table. Every guest, my colleagues, his partners, strangers who had their phones out, was watching. Let them. "This marriage is over," I declared, loud enough for the whole restaurant to hear. And then I walked. Past the shocked faces, past the maitre d' frozen in the doorway, past Marissa's fake confident laugh that sounded shakier than before. My heels clicked against the tile, steady and deliberate, each step a promise. Behind me, Caleb shouted something. I didn't care what. My ears buzzed with adrenaline. The night air hit me as I stepped outside, cold and sharp, and for the first time in months I could breathe. I didn't cry. Not one tear. Not on that street. Not in the Uber I called. Not even when I saw the glittering skyline blur past the car window. I sat there with my fists clenched in my lap and whispered a vow under my breath. "You will regret humiliating me. Every piece of your perfect little life. You will watch me take it apart with my own hands." And as the driver pulled away from the restaurant, leaving the chaos behind, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Control. Tonight wasn't the end. Tonight was the beginning. The morning after that rooftop disaster, I sat at my kitchen table staring at the half-empty coffee mug in my hands. It was hard to believe that 10 years of marriage had funneled into one brutal moment of humiliation. But when I forced myself to look back, the cracks had been forming for years. I just didn't want to see them. Caleb and I met in college, both broke but ambitious. He had a charm that filled any room, and I had the discipline that kept us afloat. When we got married, I pressed pause on my own career so he could chase his business dreams. I picked up part-time work, managed our bills, and handled the quiet, invisible labor of building a life. We celebrated every small win like it was monumental. The first car, the first apartment we didn't have to share with roommates, the first vacation we paid for ourselves. Then my mother died, and with her passing came the inheritance. She left me a modest apartment complex in Tacoma. It wasn't glamorous, but it was stable income. Caleb convinced me to put it in both our names. "We're a team," he said, sliding the paperwork across the table. And I, still blinded by loyalty, signed without hesitation. That property became the backbone of our finances. Without it, his business would have folded years ago. Our daughter, Mia, came soon after. Raising her was the greatest joy of my life, but it also meant more sacrifices. Late nights nursing her, early mornings packing lunches, school drop-offs, soccer practices. I carried it all while he networked at happy hours. When I finally restarted my career in marketing 2 years ago, it felt like reclaiming a part of myself I'd buried for too long. Still, I never questioned his absences. I told myself that stability mattered more than my doubts, but the warning signs had been there. The phone that never left his pocket. The work trips that always seemed to land on weekends. The cologne lingering on his shirts when he came home late. I even caught a lipstick stain once, faint, on his collar. He laughed it off, kissed my forehead, and called me paranoid. I wanted so badly to believe him that I pushed the suspicions down until they rotted. After the rooftop scene, I needed confirmation. Something undeniable. That's when my best friend Lena stepped in. She'd been quiet for months, choosing not to interfere, but she couldn't hold it anymore. She slid her phone across my kitchen table, and there they were, screenshots of Caleb and Marissa. Texts that weren't just flirtatious, they were vulgar, intimate, time-stamped during weekends when he'd sworn he was meeting clients. My chest tightened as I scrolled, reading his words. Words he'd never spoken to me in years, not with that kind of heat. My stomach turned when I saw the receipts, hotel bookings, expensive dinners charged to our joint account. He wasn't just betraying me emotionally, he was siphoning our resources, bleeding me dry with every lie. I pushed the phone back, my hand trembling. "So it's real," I whispered. Lena squeezed my shoulder. "It's worse than you think. People talk, Carm. Half the city knows. You're the last one he thought would ever see it." I closed my eyes, forcing myself to breathe through the humiliation. Everything I'd sacrificed, my career, my inheritance, my trust, had been traded for his ego and someone else's thrill. For the first time, I wasn't just hurt. I was furious. And fury has a way of clarifying everything. Grief has a way of paralyzing people. Not me. The moment Lena slid those screenshots across my table, something inside me flipped. I wasn't going to drown in humiliation while Caleb strutted around with his mistress like he'd won some prize. If he wanted war, he had just declared it. I started with the money. Always start with the money. That morning, while Mia was still asleep upstairs, I logged into our joint accounts. My hands shook, but my focus was razor sharp. I moved what I legally could into my own separate account, the one Caleb never bothered to notice existed. Then I called the bank and froze the rest. Watching those balances locked down felt like oxygen flooding my lungs. For years I had worried about his reckless spending. Now it was mine to control. Next came the apartment complex. I called my lawyer, Mr. Alvarez, a man my mother had trusted. I hadn't spoken to him in years, but when he picked up, his calm voice was the anchor I needed. "You're not the first woman to face this, Carmelia," he said, "and you won't be the last. But if we move fast, he won't touch your inheritance again." By noon, Alvarez had drafted the paperwork to protect my property from Caleb's reach. For the first time since my mother's funeral, I felt like I was honoring her, not wasting her gift. After that, I packed. Not everything, just what mattered. Mia's clothes, her school laptop, her favorite worn-out stuffed panda, my essentials. I didn't want Caleb accusing me of robbing him, so I left plenty behind. His suits, his watches, the TV he worshipped. Let him sit in that hollow house surrounded by all the junk he thought made him important. I left a copy of the divorce papers on the bed, not hidden in a drawer, not slipped into an envelope. Right there on the mattress, bold as a billboard. Let him see the first thing when he walked in. By evening, I'd arranged for Mia and me to stay at Lena's place temporarily. She opened her door wide without hesitation, no questions asked. Mia sensed something was wrong, but I kept my explanation simple. Daddy and I need some space. You and I are going to have an adventure for a little while. She hugged me tight, trusting me completely, and that trust burned in my chest like a brand. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for her stability, her future. When Caleb finally came home, I was long gone. But Lena's security camera caught his entrance. The slam of the door, the shuffle of his shoes, the pause when he noticed the emptiness. Later, Lena showed me the footage on her phone. I watched him stomp upstairs, fling open closets, yank drawers, then freeze at the sight of the divorce papers on the bed. His face twisted into something between shock and rage. He picked up the papers, flipped through them, then hurled them across the room like they were poison. My phone started buzzing almost immediately. First calls, then texts. What the hell is this? Where are you? Stop being dramatic. We can fix this. Carmelia, answer me. I muted every notification. He didn't deserve my words. Instead, I focused on the checklist Alvarez and I had drawn up. Switch utilities to my name, secure Mia's school records, document every transaction he'd hidden. Each move was calculated, surgical. For years, Caleb thought he was the strategist, the one who handled business. He had no idea that the woman he dismissed as paranoid was quietly dismantling his empire piece by piece. That night, lying on Lena's couch with Mia curled against me, I felt exhaustion hit like a freight train, but beneath it was steel. Caleb thought the slap on the rooftop was my breaking point. He had no clue. That was just the opening shot. The real war had only begun. The ripple effects of my first moves hit faster than I expected. By the second morning, Caleb was already unraveling. I got the first sign through a text from Lena. Check your email. She had forwarded a screenshot one of her coworkers snapped at a downtown bar. Caleb's card had been declined, twice, in front of two of his business partners. The photo captured the moment perfectly. Caleb's face red, his jaw clenched, the bartender leaning on the counter with that mix of sympathy and irritation. For a man who lived off appearances, there was no greater humiliation than having his plastic refused in public. I almost laughed, but the truth was, this was just the start. By afternoon, the mistress made her move. Marissa had posted one of those cryptic Instagram stories. Black background, white text, the kind that screams desperate. It read, "Some men talk a big game but can't back it up. Lesson learned." The comment section was chaos. Half her friends chimed in with fake sympathy. The other half whispered about Caleb. Screenshots made their way to me within the hour. Even from a distance, I could see the cracks forming between them. She hadn't signed up to babysit a man stripped of his shine. Meanwhile, my phone filled with Caleb's rage. The voicemails were a carousel of emotions, first barking threats, then smooth-talking pleas. You can't do this to me, Carmelia. That property is ours. You signed it. Do you understand what you're risking? A pause, then the softer tone. Come home. We'll talk. We can work this out. You're overreacting. By voicemail number 10, he sounded less like a husband and more like a cornered animal. Answer me. You think you can embarrass me like this? You'll regret it. But I didn't answer. Not once. Silence was my weapon, and it cut deeper than anything I could have said. At Lena's, life began to feel strangely stable. Mia adjusted quicker than I expected. She loved having a sleepover atmosphere. Her best friend Emma just down the hall. Each morning I dropped her off at school. I reminded myself why I was doing this. Not just to punish Caleb, but to carve out a safer future for her. Of course, word spread quickly. Seattle isn't as big as it looks when gossip starts moving. At Mia's soccer practice, one of the moms cornered me at the sidelines. "I heard about Caleb," she whispered, as though she were delivering funeral news. I met her eyes, smiled, and said, "Then you probably know more than I do." The look on her face was worth it. Family allies noticed, too. Caleb's older sister, Julia, reached out first. She called late at night, voice heavy with disappointment. "He's been reckless for a long time." I warned him. "You deserve better, Carm." Her support was like a rope thrown down a well. I didn't realize how much I needed someone from his side to confirm I wasn't insane. But not everyone was supportive. His father, a man obsessed with reputation, sent me a cold email. "Sort this out privately. You're making a spectacle of the family." I didn't bother replying. If he wanted to side with his cheating son, let him. He'd find out soon enough where the spectacle was truly coming from. The biggest ripple came the following weekend. Caleb tried to show up at Lena's house. I saw his car pull into the cul-de-sac, headlights cutting through the dark like a predator's eyes. My stomach twisted, but Lena was already at the door. She didn't open it. She just called down to me. "Stay with Mia. I'll handle this." Through the security camera, I watched him pound on the door. "Carmelia, you can't hide here forever. We're family, damn it. Let's talk like adults." Mia stirred upstairs, calling down, "Mom?" I forced my voice steady. "It's okay, sweetheart. Go back to sleep." Finally, when no one answered, Caleb shouted, "You'll regret this," and stormed back to his car. The tires screeched as he sped off. That was the moment I knew I'd rattled him to the core. The man who once strutted through restaurants and boardrooms like he owned them was now reduced to shouting at a locked door. And me? I wasn't scared. I wasn't even shaken. I was calm, grounded, sharper than I'd ever been. His desperation was fuel, reminding me that every move I'd made was working. The consequences weren't just hitting him. They were reshaping me. I wasn't the wife who swallowed lies anymore. I was the woman who set the fire and watched as the smoke curled around him, choking out everything he thought untouchable. And this was only the beginning. 2 weeks after I left, I thought I was done seeing Caleb in public. But men like him don't fade quietly. They crash and burn. It happened at a brunch spot on Capitol Hill, the kind of trendy place where tables are packed shoulder to shoulder, and everyone pretends not to eavesdrop while hanging on every word. Lena had invited me, saying, "You need to be seen, Carm. Let them know you're fine." So I went. Mia was at a sleepover, and for once I felt light, almost normal, sipping my mimosa while Lena chatted about work. The sunlight poured through the big windows, and I thought maybe, just maybe, I was turning a corner. Then his voice cut through the room. "Carmelia." I froze. My stomach sank before I even turned. Caleb stood in the doorway, his shirt untucked, eyes bloodshot, scanning the room like he owned it. He spotted me and marched straight over, ignoring the hostess calling after him. Conversations around us quieted to a hum. He stopped at my table, slamming his hand down hard enough to rattle the silverware. "We need to talk." I leaned back, refusing to flinch. "You've had plenty of chances to talk." His voice rose. "You're destroying everything we built, freezing accounts, dragging my name through the mud. What are you trying to prove?" The entire restaurant was tuned in now. Phones lifted under napkins. Caleb thrived on power, but here, stripped of polish, he just looked desperate. I spoke calmly, deliberately. "I'm proving that I don't belong to you. Not your lies, not your games, not your debts." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Caleb's face twisted. "This isn't you, Carm. You're letting people fill your head. You've always needed me. I laughed, a sharp, humorless sound that sliced through the tension. Needed you? Let me remind you how this really worked. My inheritance kept your company afloat. My name covered your loans. Without me, you wouldn't even qualify for a car lease, let alone that apartment downtown. Gasps broke out nearby. Caleb glanced around, realizing too late how far my voice carried. His hand twitched, as though he might reach for me, but I locked eyes with him and didn't blink. And as for Marissa, I added, raising my voice just enough for the back tables to hear, did she enjoy the hotel points you racked up cheating on me? Or is she already tired of paying her own bills now that your cards don't work? The reaction was instant. Laughter, whispers, a few outright snorts. Someone muttered, "Damn," loud enough for him to hear. Caleb's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Then, as if summoned, Marissa herself appeared. She must have followed him or gotten word he was here. She strutted in, sunglasses perched on her head, but her confidence wilted the second she saw the crowd's attention fixed on her. "Caleb," she hissed, tugging at his sleeve. "This isn't the place." He jerked away. "Don't tell me what to do." And that was it. Their perfect facade cracked wide open for everyone to see. Marissa rolled her eyes, grabbed her bag, and stormed out without another word. Phones tracked her retreat, capturing every second. Caleb reached after her, but she didn't turn back. I stood, pushing my chair in slowly, deliberately. My legs didn't shake. They felt like steel. "You see, Caleb," I said, my voice ringing through the hushed restaurant. "You thought you could humiliate me and walk away unscathed. But the truth has a way of making itself public." Then I delivered the line that would haunt him. "Go ahead and spin your stories, but everyone knows now. You're a fraud, a cheat, and a man who can't even pay his own bill without someone else covering it." A hush. Then, scattered clapping that swelled until half the restaurant joined in. Some laughed outright. Caleb's face went scarlet, veins bulging at his temples. I walked past him, brushing his shoulder lightly, not with affection, but with dismissal. As I reached the door, I turned once more. "This marriage ended the night you chose her. But today, everyone else gets to see the man you really are." The applause followed me outside. My hands trembled once I hit the street, but not from fear. From adrenaline. From the electric satisfaction of knowing I'd reclaimed the power he thought he stole from me. Behind me, Caleb stayed trapped inside that restaurant, surrounded by stares and whispers. A man stripped bare in the very city he thought adored him. And I knew, without question, that was only the second act of his downfall. If Caleb had any sense left, he would have gone quiet after the restaurant. But his pride was louder than reason. He couldn't stomach the humiliation, so he did what men like him always do. He tried to control the narrative. It started small, with a Facebook post the next morning. "Marriage is hard," he wrote, attaching a photo of him looking solemn on some rooftop I knew he hadn't paid for. "Sometimes partners drift apart. I'm praying for healing and hope people respect our privacy." Privacy. From the man who dragged his mistress into my anniversary dinner. The comments were divided. A handful of his buddies chimed in with empty sympathy. "Stay strong, man. Relationships take work." But most people weren't buying it. Screenshots from the restaurant scene had already started circulating. One thread on Twitter had racked up thousands of retweets under the caption, "When your wife has the receipts and the mic." He couldn't control the leak, so he escalated. Within days, Caleb sat down for a local news interview. I nearly choked on my coffee when I saw his face on the screen. Seattle's Channel 7, midday broadcast. Him in a crisp suit that didn't hide the bags under his eyes. The anchor smiled politely. "So, Caleb, there have been a lot of rumors swirling about your marriage. What do you want to set straight?" He leaned forward, voice dripping with faux sincerity. "My wife is troubled. She's been under a lot of stress, and she's lashed out in ways that don't reflect who she really is. The truth is, I never cheated. I was mentoring Marissa, a colleague, and my generosity was twisted into something ugly. Carmelia let her insecurities get the better of her. I sat frozen, watching him paint me as unstable, insecure, a jealous wife who couldn't handle her husband's generosity. But the universe has a cruel sense of timing. Hours later, a new Instagram account popped up. Anonymous, but everyone knew it had to be someone close. The handle was Receipts on Caleb. And, oh, did they have receipts? Screenshots of his texts to Marissa, hotel confirmations, photos of them at a Mariners game when he'd told me he was meeting clients. Even a selfie of the two of them in a hotel mirror, his shirt half unbuttoned, her holding up a peace sign like it was some kind of prize. The account exploded overnight. By morning, hashtags were trending. Caleb exposed, hotel points, Jack fraud in Seattle. Twitter and TikTok feasted on it. Clips of him on Channel 7 spliced against the screenshots. Side-by-side comparisons, mocking his line about mentoring. Memes of him offering business mentorship packages with hotel rates attached. I didn't have to lift a finger. The public tore him apart for me. Lena was giddy, refreshing her phone every 5 minutes. Girl, you've gone viral without saying a word. You're the patron saint of betrayed wives everywhere. Even my colleagues, normally buttoned-up professionals, sent me gifs and memes of Caleb's interview. One wrote, "If you need a PR team, I'll work pro bono just to keep this circus going." But the best moment came from Mia's soccer group chat. One of the moms pulled me aside at practice, her phone outstretched. The girls had found the memes too, edited versions of Caleb's face plastered on hotel ads. "They're saying your ex is internet famous now," she whispered, trying not to laugh. The humiliation spread further when local radio stations picked it up. Morning hosts replayed clips of his interview, intercut with dramatic readings of his texts to Marissa. "Mentorship, huh?" one DJ quipped. "I guess I've been mentoring my wife for years and didn't even know it." The whole studio erupted in laughter. By the end of the week, Caleb's clients started backing away. He posted another desperate video on Instagram, this time in his car, ranting about cancel culture and toxic exes. His voice cracked as he insisted he was the victim of a smear campaign. The comments didn't spare him. "You embarrassed yourself, bro. She didn't smear you. She just turned the lights on. Take the L and disappear." Even Marissa abandoned him publicly. She deleted every photo with him, changed her bio to "New Chapter, New Me." Someone screenshot her unfollowing him on Instagram. It became a headline on a gossip blog. Caleb spiraled harder. One night, I scrolled through my messages and saw he'd sent a string of frantic emails. Subject lines like, "Let's talk. Please. You're ruining me." I didn't answer. Because I wasn't ruining him. He was doing it all by himself. What struck me most was the silence that followed. Once upon a time, Caleb was loud in every room, cracking jokes, shaking hands, making promises he never kept. Now, all that noise had turned against him. The more he shouted, the more people mocked him. His reputation wasn't just damaged, it was annihilated. And I understood something then. I'd thought revenge would come from my actions, freezing accounts, packing bags, filing for divorce. But the real revenge was watching him implode in real time. Watching the public peel away his mask until there was nothing left but the pathetic man underneath. I didn't need to scream or defend myself or lift a single stone. All I had to do was stand still while he buried himself deeper. By the time the weekend rolled around, Caleb was no longer a husband, no longer a businessman, no longer anything but a walking punchline. And for the first time since the rooftop, I felt clean. By the time the hashtags died down, the real war began. The one fought not in restaurants or on Instagram, but in courtrooms and bank ledgers. Caleb tried to swagger into the first hearing like nothing had changed. He wore his best navy suit, hair slicked back, that same practiced smirk he'd used on investors and waitresses alike. But swagger doesn't mean much when your accounts are frozen and your lies are documented in black and white. My lawyer, Mr. Alvarez, was calm and methodical. He didn't raise his voice once. He didn't need to. He slid bank statements across the table showing thousands spent on hotels, dinners, jewelry, all siphoned from accounts I had funded. He presented photos, text messages, time-stamped receipts. The judge raised an eyebrow more than once, especially at the image of Caleb and Marissa in a hotel mirror. When it was Caleb's turn to speak, his confidence cracked. He stammered through some nonsense about business mentoring and networking dinners. The judge actually laughed under his breath. It was brutal, and it was only the beginning. The property dispute came next. That apartment complex my mother had left me? Caleb argued it was marital property since I'd signed his name years ago. Alvarez cut him down in minutes, pointing out that I had been the sole manager, that every tenant knew me by name, and that Caleb had contributed nothing but paperwork signatures. The ruling was swift. The property reverted fully to me. Watching Caleb's jaw clench when the gavel hit was worth every sleepless night. Then came custody. This was the one that kept me awake at night. Not because I doubted my ability to provide for Mia, but because Caleb was reckless enough to use her as leverage. He actually tried to claim I was destabilizing her by leaving the marriage. Alvarez countered with records, his missed school events, his unexplained absences, the weekends he was in hotel rooms instead of at home. The judge didn't need convincing. Sole custody awarded to me. Caleb got visitation pending review, which was legal code for don't hold your breath. The fallout extended beyond the courtroom. Caleb's father, the man obsessed with reputation, finally snapped. He called me one evening, his voice icy but steady. "You've done what I should have done years ago. He's not my son anymore." Then he hung up. Later, I learned the Rogers name carried weight in Seattle business circles, but not anymore. His father pulled the plug on every connection Caleb had left. No more introductions, no more deals. Even his brother, who once worshipped him, sent me a message. He burned every bridge. I'm not bailing him out. It was like watching dominoes fall, one after another. With no money, no job, and no family backing him, Caleb scrambled. He tried freelancing, pitching himself as a consultant, but no one wanted to touch his name. A few of his old friends hosted him on couches, but even that didn't last. His temper followed him everywhere, and soon he was out on the street again. Meanwhile, I was rebuilding. The apartment complex provided steady income. My marketing job turned into a promotion. Turns out being the woman who took down a cheater came with its own strange credibility. Clients trusted me. Colleagues admired me. Even strangers reached out with their own stories, thanking me for standing tall when they couldn't. Marissa, for her part, vanished. Rumor had it she'd skipped town, tired of being dragged into Caleb's sinking ship. I didn't care enough to confirm. She was just another chapter in a story that was no longer mine. The final blow came when the court finalized the divorce. Assets divided, debts outlined, my custody secured. Caleb walked out with nothing but personal belongings and a used sedan I insisted he keep, because I didn't want him anywhere near Mia's school pickup line. The day the decree came through, I stood on the courthouse steps with Alvarez by my side. Caleb stormed past us, muttering curses under his breath. Cameras caught him. By then, the press had learned to follow our case like it was primetime drama. One reporter asked him, "Do you regret it?" He shoved the microphone away and disappeared down the street, a man stripped of everything but his rage. I didn't gloat, not outwardly, but inside, I was on fire. Not the destructive kind, not the burn-it-all-down rage I'd felt that night on the rooftop. This was cleaner, sharper. Justice, finally balanced. Back at Lena's, Mia handed me a drawing she'd made in school. Me standing tall, holding her hand, a little house behind us with the words "home" scrawled on top. I held it to my chest and thought, this is what survival looks like. Caleb, once the man who thought he owned the world, was now broke, homeless, and irrelevant, and I was free. The email came late on a Wednesday night. Short, desperate. "Please, just one chance to talk. No cameras, no lawyers, just you and me." I should have deleted it. I should have rolled over, pulled the blanket tighter around Mia and me, and forgotten his name altogether. But some part of me knew this moment had to happen. Closure wasn't something the court could sign off on. It was something I had to take. So I agreed to meet him. Neutral ground. A coffee shop on Pike Street. The kind of place where college kids tap away on laptops and no one looks up unless a latte spills. When I walked in, Caleb was already there. He looked smaller somehow. His suit hung loose on his frame, hair unkempt, eyes ringed with exhaustion. For a second, I barely recognized the man who once demanded entire rooms revolve around him. He stood when he saw me. Carmelia. His voice cracked on my name. I slid into the chair opposite him. You wanted to talk. So talk. He sat back down, fidgeting with the cardboard sleeve on his untouched coffee. For a moment, he just stared at his hands. Then the words poured out. I messed up. I know that now. Everything's gone. My business, my family, even Marissa. She left the second the money dried up. I thought I was in control, but I wasn't. I was a fool. His voice rose, urgent, like he could convince me if he just hit the right notes. But we had years together. We built a life. Don't you remember that? The first apartment? The way you used to cheer me on no matter what? You were my anchor, Carm. I let him talk. Let him spiral through the memories, the excuses, the half-apologies. People around us barely noticed, though a woman at the next table glanced over once, probably sensing the tension hanging heavy between us. Finally, I cut him off. Why now? Why ask me here after everything? He looked up, eyes wet. Because I'm lost. I've got nothing left. I need you. I can change. I'll be better this time. Just give me a chance. A bitter laugh escaped me before I could stop it. You need me? You needed me when I was covering your debts. When I was raising Mia alone while you played businessman. When I signed away my inheritance because you convinced me we were a team. You didn't need me then, Caleb. You used me. He shook his head violently. No, it wasn't like that. I loved you. I still... Loved me? I leaned forward, my voice low but sharp. Loved me while you booked hotel rooms with her? Loved me when you let the whole city think I was crazy? Loved me when you dragged our daughter into your lies by pretending you were present when you weren't? He flinched like every question was a slap. His hand trembled as he reached across the table, but I didn't move. Carmelia, please, I'm begging you, I don't have anyone else. For the first time in years, I saw him clearly. Not the charming husband I once defended, not the arrogant man who thought he was untouchable. Just a broken shell, hollowed out by his own greed. And I felt nothing, no pity, no rage. Just the steady calm of someone who finally understands the truth. I stood, sliding my chair back slowly. He looked up at me like a drowning man watching the last lifeboat drift away. You want someone to save you? I said softly. But that's not my job anymore. His lips parted, ready to argue, to plead, to promise again. I didn't give him the chance. I looked him straight in the eye, my voice steady, final. You're the architect of your own destruction. And with that, I turned and walked out. The bell above the cafe door jingled as I stepped into the cool Seattle air. Behind me, I heard nothing. Not footsteps, not shouts. Just silence. I didn't look back. A year can change everything. 12 months ago, I was standing on a rooftop restaurant, humiliated in front of strangers and friends, my marriage shattering in real time. Tonight, I'm standing on the balcony of my own apartment, overlooking the same skyline. Only this time the air doesn't taste like betrayal. It tastes like freedom. Life has reshaped itself in ways I couldn't have imagined. The apartment complex my mother left me is thriving under my management. I hired a property manager to handle the day-to-day, giving me space to grow my marketing career. Last month, I closed a deal with a major Seattle firm. They didn't hire me because I was someone's wife. They hired me because I proved myself. Mia is flourishing too. She's more confident, more open. We started weekend traditions, pancake breakfasts on Saturdays, movie nights on Sundays. She doesn't ask about her father much anymore. When she does, I tell her the truth, gently but honestly. I want her to know that love can exist without lies, that respect is non-negotiable. As for Caleb, His name drifts through conversations like a cautionary tale. I hear he's been couch surfing, burning through the last of his goodwill. No one trusts him. No business partner will touch him. Even his own family has shut the door. Every once in a while, a rumor surfaces. Someone spotted him bussing tables at a bar. Someone else saw him leaving a shelter downtown. But I don't dig. He's not my concern anymore. He's a shadow of the man he pretended to be. Sometimes I think about that final coffee shop meeting. The desperation in his eyes. The way his voice cracked when he begged me to take him back. For a moment, I almost pitied him. But pity doesn't heal scars. Distance does. And I've put miles, emotional and physical, between who I was then and who I am now. What betrayal taught me is simple. Destruction and liberation can look the same at first. That night on the rooftop, I thought my world had collapsed. In reality, it was being rebuilt. Stronger. Cleaner. Mine. Now, when I pass that restaurant on date nights with friends or colleagues, I don't flinch. I smile. Because that's where the story ended for him. And began for me. I'm not the woman who begged for scraps of attention anymore. I'm not the wife who swallowed excuses or signed papers out of blind loyalty. I'm Carmelia Rogers, mother, business owner, survivor. And the sound of my heels clicking away from that marriage still echoes like music in my chest. Betrayal doesn't define me. Freedom does.